people. My name is Lesego, the visionary of all times. As you know, I'm a young person who is very passionate about any matters that deal with humanity. This could be humanitarian causes, this could be matters to do with social entrepreneurship, this could be matters to do with climate action, this could be matters to deal with education. And it is my duty as a young leader to make sure that whenever I see problems in society, whenever I see problems in my nation, I rather react to those problems from a point of a solution bearer, someone who comes up with solutions to solve such problem. In entrepreneurship, the whole idea of entrepreneurship is to bring solutions to problems that humanity is faced with. And in response to that, when you bring the kind of solutions that solve the problems that people needed solutions for, you will automatically be rewarded in the journey of entrepreneurship. And right now I'm coming here as someone who has studied in the field of business, someone who is knowledgeable in matters of finance, someone who is knowledgeable in matters of economics, someone who is knowledgeable in matters of trade, someone who is knowledgeable in matters of international business, someone who is knowledgeable in entrepreneurship, someone who is knowledgeable in any matters to do with the law, especially when you talk about business, when you talk about entrepreneurship, when you talk about finance and economics. So today my tone will be a bit different from the one that you're used to when I'm an activist, when I'm a philanthropist, when I'm in social entrepreneurship. Today I'm in my field, the one that I studied in, and I'll be coming here to just let you know that from now on I'll be teaching Botswana about matters of finance, because I am concerned by the rate at which Botswana do not understand a lot of things in regard to finance. You know, this is from personal finance, this is to even finance at an investment level. And I've come here to make sure that I put and enlighten Botswana in matters of finance. Of course, I understand that there's a lot of talk around here in matters of finance, but I realize that the depth of those talks, the depth of those kind of information that's available there is rather on a peripheral level. It doesn't hold depth, it doesn't hold the kind of comprehension that a typical Motswana would make sense to. And I'm coming here to deliver that to Botswana as someone who is trained in that field, as someone who's knowledgeable in that field, and I'll be doing that with the level of eloquence that I am certain that will bring a difference more matilo Botswana. And just a disclaimer, I'm not coming here claiming to be the richest young person in Botswana, because I realize that Botswana, when you teach them about finance, automatically they assume that you are Warren Buffett. So just for starters, the first important word that you need to know in finance is what we call principle. So my amazing people, in finance, when we talk about principle, we are talking about the money that you put aside for investment, or the initial capital that you put aside for an investment. So that's what principle is all about. So the second word that you need to know as a young person in your financial life is what we call compound interest. So in simple terms, in simplified financial term or financial definition that I will give, not the book's definition, the simplified version of it, when you talk about compound interest, you're talking about interest on interest. Compound interest is interest on interest. With compound interest, what happens is that you have the interest on the principal amount that you invested plus the interest on the previous month, depending on the type of investment that you have made. So that is pretty much what compound interest is. Just as the word says it, compound interest, it's self-explanatory. It's the kind of interest that compounds on top of the interest from the principal that you invested. All right, I hope that makes sense. The third word that you need to understand in finance is what we call net worth. Net worth, my amazing people, is simply the difference between what you owe or liabilities and what you own, assets. The next term that you need to know in finance is what we call inflation. For those who are fortunate to have done economics 101, which is the basic economics or the microeconomics, you know very well how inflation is defined. To explain this further to you, I'm going to use the analogy of bread, a loaf of bread. I want you to tell or to just imagine it in your brain. The first time you were sent to the shop to go and buy bread, when was the first time you went to the shop and you were sent to go and buy bread? Whether it was Bar or Choppies or whichever store that you've been sent to go and buy bread, wherever you were sent, just remember the first time at the shop to go and buy bread. When you got there, I believe you can still remember the first price that you bought bread for. And then now try to come back to the now, today, and ask yourself, how much does a loaf of bread cost today? All right? Definitely. So you see that over a period of time, the price of this commodity that we call bread has changed significantly over the years. And that is the simple definition. That is the simple way in which this concept of inflation is explained or can be defined. So it is simply the change in prices of goods and services over a period of time. All right? I hope you've noted that. And another way of explaining inflation is just in how 2 years ago, pre-COVID-19, about 2019, 2018, when you had a 200 pula note, imagine how much groceries you could walk into a store and walk out with, and come back now to 2023 with the same note, how much in terms of the volume of groceries that you are able to buy with a 200 pula note. You see? So that difference in terms of how much groceries you could buy with the same note 2 or 3 years ago and now. So that was basically it about inflation. The same note that gave you more goods 2 years or 3 years ago is the same note that today you are buying less goods with. So that is just an illustration of how inflation works. The next word or term that you need to know as a young person is what we call liquidity. Liquidity coming from the concept of liquid. What do we mean when we say liquidity? So in the financial world, when we say liquidity or when we talk about liquidity, we are simply talking about the money that is available to you in cash. So liquidity is simply explained or described like that. I'll give you an example. The money that is right now in your wallet, the money that you have in your mobile banking, the money that you have in your ATM card, the money that you have in your credit card that you can access at any moment, we say that that is the money that is liquid in its nature. And then I'll go further to talk about liquidity in terms of investment. So when you invest in the kind of investments that give you money or that bring you returns in a short-term period or in a short-term duration, that is also the investments that we describe or label to be liquid. We say those kind of investments are liquid because they are able to bring you money back, or the money that you invested back in a faster manner. The next and very important term that you need to know in finance as a young person is what we call income. So income is simply the money that is coming in. All right, money coming in is called income. So in the way that I'm going to tell you, income is simply the money that is coming in. And there are two types of income that you need to know about. There's what we call active income, and there's also what we call passive income. So active income is the kind of income that you make when you are actively involved or engaged in something. For instance, your job, you can only make money from your job when you show up daily for the required time from 8 in the morning until 5 p.m. in the evening, as per your employer's requirements for you. So that kind of income that you get from your job, we call it active income, because it requires you to be engaged or to be involved directly and on a day-to-day basis. And then the second type of income that we have, just like I said, is what we call passive income. So with passive income, it's simply the kind of income that you make without you having to be directly engaged or to be directly involved with the kind of activity that brings you income. For instance, a business or an investment is what we call passive income. So when I have a business that I'm doing, that maybe it's a grocery store somewhere, or a rental where I have apartments that I'm renting out to people, the money that I'm making from those apartments is called passive income. Why? Because I am not always available there in my space to, I don't always show up basically to the apartments with the tenants and try to lecture them on how to do what. So I just give my tenants the houses or the apartments, and then by the end of the month they pay me. Of course, from time to time I'll have to do maintenances here and there, but the whole idea is that you are not always actively engaged in that kind of business. It brings you your income without you having to always show up. You can even carry on and do your other things that we can call active engagements, while you know that the passive income is being generated. So the next important concept that you need to know as a young person in finance is what we call expenses. So expenses are simply the opposite of income. So I said that income is money coming in. So expenses now is money going out. So you need to know that there are two types of expenses or costs. We have what we call variable expenses or variable costs, and then we have what we call fixed costs or fixed expenses. Okay, when we talk about fixed costs or fixed expenses, we are talking about the kind of expenses that you have to pay for on a regular basis, and their price or their cost that doesn't change. It's fixed, just as the name suggests. These are things like your school fees, your tuition fees, your rent, and other things that you pay for in terms of that you pay for on a regular basis. This can include even your subscription. So they don't just change randomly, they remain fixed like that over a period of time. So with variable expenses, we are talking about the kind of expenses that change from time to time. Okay, they change from time to time. These are things that include your transport fare. You know very well that in the past year, in year 2022, we've seen the transport fare for public transport changing a lot of times. People who are using public transport were experiencing this challenge where the price of public transport could change randomly. And another type of variable expenses or variable cost is food or food items. So the amount at which you buy food at the wholesaler will depend on how much they bought it from the supplier from which they got such goods. So you see that today you'll be buying a 2-liter cooking oil for a certain amount, and then next week you might find that the prices just change. For instance, a month ago I went to buy groceries, and I remember that I bought a pack of tomatoes for about 15 pula, right? So in this very week that we're in, I went to buy my groceries, and I was shopping for vegetables. I looked for tomatoes, and I found out that tomatoes cost 20 pula. So you can see that the prices of tomatoes just in a space of 30 days changed from 15 pula to 20 pula. So that is a clear example of that. food is a variable cost, or food is a variable expense. Its price can change from time to time, as frequent as possible. So that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to teach you the next term or concept that you need to know as a young person in your financial life. And that concept is the concept of budget. A budget. A budget is simply a plan or an outline that helps you on how to spend your money. So a budget is simply a plan that helps you on how to spend your money. Okay, so I believe we all know a budget. I believe we've all drawn our budget at some point in life, and those who are financially disciplined, they draw budgets every month for their groceries, whether it's household groceries, whether it's utilities, bills, you name it. We try by all means to draw budgets so that we do not live beyond our means, so that we don't go beyond what we have or what we plan or what we budgeted for certain expenses, right? So that is the whole use or the idea of a budget. The most interesting thing about a budget is that a budget brings together the two concepts of expenses and income. Okay, so in a budget you try to draw your expenses and based on your income. So your income will determine how you are able to accommodate the expenses that you have to draw in your budget. So this is how the three concepts go together. Income and expenses come together and they help you to draw your budget. Now I'll just teach you the last concept that is very, very important for you as a young person to know in your financial life. And that is the concept of what we call a liability. A liability, okay? I believe you always hear people say that some people are liabilities, whereas some people are assets. So just like income and expenses are antagonistic, the same thing applies to liabilities and assets, okay? The antagonistic terms, that is to say, they go in opposite directions. So a liability is something that doesn't add value to you or doesn't bring you money, but rather it takes money from you. There are two types of liabilities. The first one is what we call personal liability. Personal liability is simply when you take money to buy something, or when you take something that is not yours and then you have to pay the owner for it. So a personal liability could be an example when you take a loan to buy a phone. So we call that a personal liability. And then the second type of liabilities is what we call investment. Investment liabilities, they involve you borrowing money